In this video, we're going to talk about object methods, more specifically, the ones that we create ourselves. A method is a function associated with an object, or simply put, a method is a property of an object that is a function. Methods are defined the way normal functions are defined, except that they have to be assigned as the property of an object. For example, let's say that we have an object called const myObj, and that's going to be equal to this. And now in here, of course, we can have key and value pairs, right? We learned that. But we can also have methods. And method is, simply said, another property of an object that is a function. So in here, let's name our method myMethod, just like that. Now, that is going to be equal to a function. That's it. This is our function. We already learned about functions. We learned how they worked. We learned that they have parameters and that there is a block of code that something is going to happen. We can also declare a method using a normal function. So that's going to look like this, myMethod1, and that's going to be equal to a function. And then we have a block of code as we learned. So this is using arrow functions, and then this is using normal functions. And then finally, the third way of actually declaring functions or methods inside of an object is doing it like this. myMethod, and let's call it 3, and then simply just have it in there. It's laying in the object, it belongs to it, that's it. You don't need to have the key and the value, you simply put it right there. Personally, I believe that arrow functions are the best way to do it. They are newest, and most often if you're working with normal functions, you're gonna use arrow functions, so why not use them here? Now, how do we actually call or execute this function? Well, let's make something that makes sense. Let's create an object that's going to be called a dog. That dog is going to have a name. Let's use our old fluffy example. So this is a property, and then that dog is going to have a function, or more specifically, a method, and that method is going to be called bark. In there, we're simply going to console log something, and that something is going to be woof, woof, just like that. Now, how do we actually call this function or a method right here? What you have to do is you first have to access that property. And we already know, if you have an object, you access properties by using the dot notation. So that's going to be dog.bark. And now, this here is a function, right? We already know how to call functions. You simply call it by using the set of opening and enclosing parentheses. That's it. If we now call it, you can see in the console, we get woof woof. You can also do something like this. Let's say that we have a dog and that he has also an age of 2. Now, let's say that you want to console log all the properties of an object. Of course, you could do that. You could do something like this, console log and then have dog.name. And then also in the new row, you can have dog.age. Of course, if we now save this, you can see we get fluffy, that should be fluffy, and then we have 2. Great. This works, but let's say that you want to create one method that's going to tell you about all the properties of a single object. We can do that, and we can do it like this. In this case, we're going to have to use this JavaScript keyword, this one. We're going to learn more about this in one of the next sections, but for now, let me just show you how it works. This keyword refers to this object right there. Therefore, we can use the name and the age. How does that work? Well, first of all, we said that we cannot use this keyword inside of arrow functions. So in this case, and only in this case, when you need to use this, we need to use the normal function. So I'm going to create that right here. Great. Now, what you can do is in here, you can immediately console log all the properties by using this keyword. So that's going to be this.name and also this.age. We don't have to refer to the dog because we are already inside of that object, and by using the this keyword, that exactly points to the dog and then all the properties. Now, if I just call this function now, let's rename it to list all properties. If we remove these and simply call dog.list all properties, as you can see, we get fluffy and 2. That works. That means that you can use the this keyword, which we're going to learn more about in the next section, like this. But this is not something you're going to use a lot. Most often, you're simply going to have properties, key and value pairs. You'll be able to use the dot notation and square brackets notation to actually access and work on the properties of that object.